So imagine you're building this massive, impenetrable fortress, right?
Okay.
Like it's got high stone walls, a deep moat, heavy iron gates, the whole deal.
Yeah.
And you spend years reinforcing it, obsessing over every single potential vulnerability just to keep threats out.
Right, getting really defensive.
Exactly. But then one day, you look around this empty courtyard and you realize you haven't actually locked the world out. You've really just, locked yourself in.
Yeah.
So today we are taking a really hard look at the difference between actual functional caution
Mhm.
and, well, fear dressed up in a really nice suit.
I mean, it is a devastating realization when that hits. You think you're building a safe future, but upon closer inspection, you're maintaining a museum dedicated to your past failures.
Museum of past failures, yeah.
Right. We construct these elaborate psychological architectures just to avoid feeling vulnerable ever again.
Totally. Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We have a super fascinating stack of sources to explore today, drawing from Tarot by Hisi.
Mhm.
Specifically, we're looking at an astrology of the day forecast for April 15th, 2026. And alongside it, a beautifully crafted companion fable for April 16th.
It's a really unique pairing.
It is. It's a StoryScope titled The Fire That Remembers Its Name.
Yeah, we have this abstract cosmic weather report paired with a deeply grounded narrative that explores those exact same themes. It just, offers a really unique lens to examine human behavior.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the mission for our deep dive today is to explore how these planetary alignments translate into a highly relatable human story about reclaiming your personal power.
Yes.
We're going to look at how you, like you listening to this right now, can apply this blueprint to your own life. If you have ever felt stuck in neutral, just analyzing a situation to death but never actually making a move, this is definitely for you.
Oh, absolutely. But to understand how to reclaim power, we first have to examine the mechanism of feeling powerless, right? That is the whole foundation of both the astrological chart we're looking at and the protagonist of our fable. I mean, we really can't understand the cure without dissecting the illness first.
Okay, so let's start with the illness then.
Mm-hmm.
The first astrological concept highlighted in the source material is a transit called the Sun conjunct Quiron.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone who isn't an astrologer, let's just break down the mechanics of what that actually means.
Sure. So let's start with the terms themselves. A transit simply refers to the ongoing movement of the planets and the angles they form with one another from our perspective here on Earth.
Got it.
And a conjunction happens when two celestial bodies occupy the exact same space in the sky. Their energies blend so completely that you just can't untangle them. They speak with one voice.
So in this case, we have the Sun blending with Chiron.
Precisely. And in astrology, the sun represents our core identity, our vitality, our spotlight. It's our fundamental sense of self. Chiron, on the other hand, is an asteroid known as the wounded healer. It represents where we carry our deepest, often oldest psychological bruises.
Wow, so you put those two together.
Right. When the brilliant light of the sun occupies the same space as Chiron, those hidden wounds are suddenly illuminated. The source notes describe this specific alignment as a time of liberation from past wounding.
Which kind of wounds?
Specifically bruises around confidence, rejection, visibility, and really just our fundamental right to take up space.
Yeah, and taking up space can feel incredibly dangerous if you've been punished for it in the past.
Definitely.
Like, imagine a brilliant architect who intentionally pitches safe, boring, highly conventional designs because a wildly innovative project they pitched 10 years ago in college was publicly mocked by a professor.
Oh, that's a great example.
They tell themselves they were just being commercial or practical, but they are really just flinching from a decade-old rejection.
What's fascinating here is how the source text actually phrases this dynamic. It notes that under this transit, we tend to perform strength instead of actually inhabiting it.
Perform strength instead of inhabiting it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Right. We put on this armor of being capable and professional and detached, but underneath that armor, the underlying operating system is still just a massive fear of being seen and judged.
And this brings us directly into the fable, where we meet our protagonist, Arson. He lives in a faltering kingdom that is literally carved into the bones of a fallen star.
Which is such great imagery.
It's beautiful, but its towers are dimming. And Arson, he's not this loud, brash savior. He's known entirely for his restraint and his silences. He steps back when others step forward.
And, people often misinterpret that kind of retreat as humility.
Right.
Or perhaps just a natural, thoughtful hesitation.
Exactly. But the text makes it clear that his peers don't see the fracture beneath his behavior. Arson acts this way because he learned long ago that reaching too far meant being struck down.
He learned the hard way.
Yeah, he learned that shining too brightly invited the cold gaze of those who preferred the dim. So he just preemptively dimmed himself. It really reminds me of an autoimmune response.
Oh, interesting. Explain how you mean that.
Well, in an autoimmune disease, the body's defense mechanisms become hyperactive and they start attacking healthy tissue, right?
Mm-hmm.
The immune system is trying to protect the body, but it ends up destroying it. And Arson's caution is doing the exact same thing.
Oh, I see.
He thinks he's protecting himself from the cold gaze of others,
Hmm.
but his defense mechanism is destroying his own potential. He is masking his fear as strategy.
I love that. That is a much more accurate way to look at it than mere caution. You call it an autoimmune response, and the source text explicitly identifies Arson's restraint as a fracture.
A fracture.
Yeah, it's brokenness masquerading as wisdom. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it isn't just Arson suffering from this. The entire kingdom is afflicted.
Right, everyone is stuck.
The leaders of the city are stuck in endless analytical paralysis. They argue in circles about how to save the dimming towers. The text notes that their decisions dissolve before taking root, and their plans vanish like mist. It is the ultimate expression of performing action without actually doing anything.
It really forces you to look at your own life. Like, where are you analyzing a situation to death just so you don't have to make a vulnerable move?
Exactly.
Where are you calling your hesitation practical restraint?
The text specifically advises that breaking this Chiron pattern happens through action, not analysis. You cannot outthink a psychological wound. You have to move through it. You have to take the action that the wound is telling you to avoid.
Which is so hard. And the tragedy for Arson's kingdom is that logic and endless arguing are completely failing them. The practical discussions are yielding zero results. The towers just keep dimming.
Yeah.
And this tees up our next astrological influence, where the cosmic weather essentially dictates that, well, since logic has hit a wall, a completely different approach is required.
Right, so we enter the territory of Mercury conjunct Neptune.
Okay.
We know a conjunction means a blending of energies. Mercury is the planet of the mind, communication, data processing, linear logic.
The spreadsheet of the zodiac.
Exactly, the spreadsheet. And Neptune is the planet of dreams, intuition, illusion, and the vast subconscious fog. So when you blend them, the sharp edges of the spreadsheet get soaked in watercolor.
Uh-huh. And the source notes mention this energy is not ideal for making practical decisions.
No, not at all. It makes the mind incredibly imaginative and receptive, but it dissolves focus. Conversations flow, but they lack clear conclusions. Ideas become super dynamic and free-spirited.
So what's the advice?
The advice from the forecast is to tap into creativity, trust your instincts, and tune into the subtle whispers of your inner self. It states directly, not everything has to be deciphered to hold significance.
And we see this cosmic weather manifest perfectly in Arson's journey. The kingdom is failing, but instead of calling another logical committee meeting, Arson just walks away.
He literally leaves the logic behind.
Yeah, he goes beyond the city walls, drawn by this unnamed pull. The atmosphere changes. He eventually meets a guide named Lyre, who is sitting beside a reflecting pool of memory and dream.
A classic Neptunian setting. The boundaries between the tangible world and the subconscious are totally blurred.
But Arson is still operating with his Mercury logic brain, right? He's frustrated. He demands answers from Lyre, saying, the kingdom needs clarity, not riddles.
Right, he wants the spreadsheet back.
Exactly. And Lyre offers this really profound response. Lyre says, clarity is a blade. Useful, yes, but you have forgotten the sea from which it is forged. You seek to act without listening, to move without feeling.
This captures the absolute crux of the Mercury-Neptune transit. We become so fixated on the blade, the hard data, the clear strategy, the bulleted list of action items, that we completely disconnect from the vast subconscious sea where genuine insight actually originates.
Now, I have to admit, I kind of struggle with this concept.
Oh.
Let's look at this from the perspective of someone operating in a high-stakes, practical environment. If an engineer is trying to diagnose a critical structural flaw in a bridge, or, I don't know, a programmer is trying to debug a server failure that's costing their company thousands of dollars a minute.
High-stress situations.
Yeah. In those situations, trusting whispers and ignoring practical matters sounds like terrible advice. You can't just tell your team you're waiting for a feeling from the subconscious sea. How does this actually work without leading to complete disaster?
Well, it sounds like terrible advice if you assume Lyre is telling Arson to throw the blade away permanently. But let's look at the context here.
Okay.
This raises an important question about the limits of human intellect. Arson's kingdom has already exhausted linear logic. Their smartest leaders are arguing in endless circles, analyzing the data from every conceivable angle, and the kingdom is still dying.
Ah. So it's about what you do when the spreadsheet fails you.
Exactly. When you've checked the code 100 times or run the structural simulation over and over and you still cannot find the flaw, staring at the screen harder isn't going to produce a different result.
Right.
Linear thinking has reached its absolute limit. This transit and Lyre's advice is about letting the subconscious do the heavy lifting. You step away, you take a walk, you take a shower, and suddenly the solution just pops into your head out of nowhere.
Oh, that happens all the time.
Right. That is intuition finding the path that linear logic literally could not see. It's about synthesis, bringing all the data together in the subconscious rather than just endlessly analyzing it in the conscious mind.
Okay, that reframes it completely for me. You aren't abandoning the intellect. You're recognizing that the intellect is just one tool, and right now it's just the wrong tool for the job.
Exactly.
And by finally surrendering his desperate need to decipher and control every single step with logic, Arson allows Lyre to guide him deep beneath the citadel. This descent brings us to the core of his journey, and really to the most explosive astrological transit in our source material.
Yes. We arrive at Mars sextile Pluto. This is a powerhouse alignment.
Okay, break it down.
To understand it, we define the planets first. Mars represents our drive, our raw action, our ambition, and our aggression. Pluto is the planet of profound, often subterranean transformation, ultimate power, and the shadow self.
And the angle they form.
A sextile. In astrology, a sextile is a 60-degree angle between two bodies. It represents harmony, flow, and opportunity.
So they aren't fighting?
No, instead of clashing, these two intense planetary forces are cooperating. The forecast describes this as an energy that enables purposeful and transformative action. It is highly auspicious for launching a project, making a bold ask, or executing a daring move.
The notes explicitly say the bolder, the better.
They do, but they pair it with a crucial, non-negotiable warning. It says aggressive isn't the same as confident.
Oh, that's a big distinction.
It's huge. Understanding the mechanical difference between aggression and confidence is paramount here. This alignment does not support random rage, tantrums, or forcing your will onto others. It supports supreme, focused power.
And here's where it gets really interesting in the fable. Arson and Lyre reach the very bottom of the citadel, deep underground, and Arson finally encounters the source of the kingdom's dread, the Ember Sovereign.
The big bad.
Right, it's this mythical, feared force, but when he actually lays eyes on it, it totally defies his expectations.
Yeah.
It doesn't roar, it doesn't lash out and consume everything like a wildfire. The text describes it as waiting, coiled like a thought on the verge of becoming action.
Oh, it's the literal embodiment of Mars sextile Pluto.
It really is.
It is raw, limitless power, but it's perfectly focused. It doesn't need to shout to prove it exists.
Exactly. And standing in front of this immense force, Arson experiences a massive psychological shift. All those memories of holding back, of stepping down to remain safe, of dimming his own light, he realizes he had never actually lacked power. He had feared it.
Who's terrified of it?
Yeah, he was terrified of his own potential intensity, so he locked it away. And Lyre offers him one final piece of instruction before he interacts with the Ember. Lyre says, do not command it, do not fight it, meet it.
Meet it. That implies establishing a relationship as an equal.
That's right. Arson stands there completely vulnerable and speaks his truth to the Ember. He says, I have mistaken fear for caution, and I have turned away from what I am capable of.
Wow.
He doesn't attempt to dominate the fire, because that would be aggression. He doesn't run from it, because that would be his old pattern of retreat. He simply promises to learn it.
And the synthesis that follows is a profound moment of psychological integration. The Ember doesn't consume him, it flows into him. The source text provides a really brilliant description of the mechanics of this healing. It says, the fractures within him did not vanish, they aligned, became channels rather than breaks.
Let's dig into that mechanism for a second.
Yeah.
How does a fracture like a psychological wound actually become a channel?
Well, think about the immense amount of mental and emotional energy it takes to suppress a part of yourself.
It's exhausting.
It really is. Arson spent his entire life actively holding back his own intensity, policing his own behavior to ensure he didn't shine too brightly. That suppression requires constant effort.
Right.
When you finally stop fighting yourself, when you accept that you possess this Mars-Pluto drive and you integrate it, you suddenly reclaim all that wasted energy. The very wound that used to leak your power now acts as a pipeline for it. You no longer flinch when you're seen. You use your visibility to direct the energy.
And the external results of this internal integration are immediate, but not in a magical fairy tale sort of way. When arson returns to the surface, the kingdom leaders are still trapped in their endless arguments. The people are still waiting.
Reality didn't just bend to his will.
Exactly. The external world has not instantly fixed itself just because arson had a breakthrough, but arson's behavior is fundamentally altered.
So how does he navigate the ongoing chaos?
He steps forward. He doesn't suddenly become a loud, aggressive tyrant shouting everyone down. He simply speaks fewer, clearer words. When the old guard resists him, he doesn't push back with hostility. But crucially, he also doesn't retreat into his old comfortable silence. The text simply states, he persisted.
He persisted. This ties the entire astrological narrative together flawlessly.
Doesn't it?
Urson breaks the Sun conjunct Chiron pattern of hiding his true self. He achieves this through direct action, facing the Ember, rather than through more analysis.
Yeah.
He embodies the Mars sextile Pluto energy by wielding confident, focused power rather than noisy, aggressive force. He doesn't sit around waiting for a consensus from the arguing leaders. He doesn't need everyone in the room to validate his plan. He shifts the trajectory of the entire kingdom simply by inhabiting his newly reclaimed sense of self.
And the text notes he acts not as a threat, but as a force aligned with those who dared to meet themselves fully. As a result of his unyielding presence, the towers finally begin to brighten.
Right.
The kingdom starts moving again. It's not perfect, and it's not immediate, but the stagnation is broken.
And the stagnation breaks because the movement is finally rooted in authenticity rather than the performance of caution we discussed at the very beginning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's bring all these threads together into a cohesive summary. This deep dive provides a highly practical three-step blueprint for breaking out of personal paralysis, drawn straight from these transits. First, the Sun conjunct Chiron alignment asks us to confront and heal our old wounds of visibility.
Right.
We have to recognize where we are confusing a lingering fear of taking up space with practical strategy.
And second, the Mercury conjunct Neptune energy teaches us how to navigate when logic exhausts itself. It grants us permission to stop obsessing over the blade of clarity and to trust the intuitive pull of the subconscious sea when our linear thinking just hits a brick wall.
And finally, the Mars sextile Pluto alignment demonstrates how to actually wield our personal power. We do not achieve our goals through noisy aggression or trying to dominate our environment.
No.
We achieve them through quiet, unyielding, highly focused persistence. We become the Ember Sovereign.
You know, the fable leaves us with a lingering, really beautiful image at its conclusion.
Oh, yeah.
Arson is back in the tangible world, doing the hard work of healing the kingdom. But in quiet moments, he can still hear that whisper from the deep underground. However, it's no longer pushing him forward or demanding he seek something out. It simply reminds him, you are already becoming.
You are already becoming.
I think that is the core message for you to take away from this. True transformation doesn't require you to go out into the world and acquire some foreign power you lack. It requires you to journey inward, past the endless analytical arguments of your own mind, and meet the formidable force you already possess. You just have to stop treating your own potential like a threat.
So what does this all mean for you right now as you step back into your daily life? As you return to your career, your relationships, and your ambitions, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Take a hard, honest look at the structures in your life that you claim are protecting you. Examine the silences you maintain during important meetings. Look at the bold ideas you water down before sharing them. Question the steps backward you take when the spotlight swings your way.
Are they really protecting you?
Exactly. Are those actions actually keeping you safe? Or are they simply monuments dedicated to a past rejection? What if the intense, uncompromising power you were so afraid of expressing isn't a destructive wildfire at all? What if it is the exact focused ember you need to finally illuminate your own faltering towers?